Hi Tavinder, welcome back to Healing After Infant Loss. Thank you so much for coming back for a second episode.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be. I really appreciate it.
Before we start the episode, could you talk to me a little bit about your story and give us just a little bit of an overview of your history with cancer and infant loss and things like that?
I came across IVF through having cancer myself. So me and my husband both had cancer at similar points. And I only came through fertility knowledge through having had cancer. I wouldn't have possibly considered IVF if that hadn't happened. So that was to preserve my eggs and to have a chance to get pregnant at some other point. So my focus was focusing on my own health and my own needs and going through the treatment. And then I had to wait for 5 years to see if I could get pregnant myself, which didn't happen. And then I had knowledge that I had fibroids, which are non-cancerous, that is, in your womb. And also then I had IVF after in my 40s once COVID hit, which was a terrible time. And then once that happened, unfortunately, the IVF didn't work for me. And then after that, my womb went into kind of a process of, it took control of my life. It kind of decided to do its own thing, which was I ended up bleeding several times because of it. I also discovered that I had adenomyosis during my IVF period of time, which I wasn't aware of. So I had very difficulties with my womb. I was suffering. I was bleeding very heavily. I was hospitalized because of it. I had to take medication, but the medications don't do anything. You just have to we talked about that last time, you just left bleeding constantly, just in and out of hospital. Here you go in hospital, you're at hospital again. But it just wasn't not manageable for me. I was advised to have hysterectomy because of the state of it. I looked quite large in my uterus size as well. So for me, the hysterectomy was the end of having the chance to have a child. It put closure to the door. I was in my late 40s anyway, so having a child possibly wasn't going to be the case. But my womb was also quite difficult in itself. So obviously I knew lots of women can have a child in their late 40s. But my womb was in a state that it wouldn't have happened anyway. So that kind of closed the door for me in terms of my journey. So now I'm kind of processing what that means for me now, 3 years post IVF and about a year after having hysterectomy.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And there is a full episode if anybody wants to go and watch your full story as well. We've already been talking for a good 15-20 minutes, and I actually started the call with you saying that I've just done therapy, so I've got swollen eyes and I was a bit emotional this morning, and we had a bit of a talk about it, and I wondered if you wanted to share your experience of therapy through infant loss, because it's something I think therapy is becoming less stigmatized, but I think a couple of years ago it was very taboo, and at least in my eyes. And actually, since finding a really great therapist, it's really helped me to, well, today was the first time talking about infant loss, but I think it's going to really help me process my grief and talk about things. Do you want to talk about your experience as well with therapy and how it helped you?
I feel it's really important to have therapy for your own mental health, especially talking to somebody who's a complete stranger. They're not going to judge you. They're not going to, question you. They're just going to there to listen. That's what we spoke about last time, is sometimes you just want someone to listen to you and hear what you have to say, instead of again saying, oh no, do this, do that, go over here. It's just someone to listen and understand and validate your experience and your emotion. I did therapy quite a lot of times in my life. I did therapy during my cancer experience. I met a wonderful lady who was at a local centre that did therapy with me, and she was absolutely amazing. And I found it valuable to talk about how I was feeling at that time. Like you spoke about your range of emotions, anger, whether it's jealousy, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. That's valid for you to feel that way and not to be judged, or, why are you feeling angry? You shouldn't be feeling angry. That's not right. Whatever emotion you're feeling is okay to feel like that. And I found that so invaluable to do. I actually wanted to be a therapist myself.
Mm.
So I did do some counseling courses as well, just to, because I find it so beneficial. And like you say, there's so much stigma around talking to other people around it, but I feel it's the complete opposite.
Mm.
And also so they can reflect back what you've said as well. And sometimes you feel like, you don't even know what you have been through yourself. I'm sure you felt the same way. Then it comes to doors and you're younger. I mean, I went through all of this stuff and I did all of that. How amazing am I? How did I manage to cope with all of this? I think it's self-validation and self-appreciation for how much you've had to undertake in your own journey. And obviously their experience and what they do, they can give you tools as well to help, which you can take off yourself and how to cope within a daily basis and whatever you're dealing with. I always found that so beneficial in myself. So yeah, I just felt, especially after I had my IVF, I wanted to talk to somebody about it because I was going through emotions that I didn't know, they were so bubbling up, and I just felt like it was best to get it out rather than keep it in for my own health as well, because obviously bury it's not good for you. You can get ill in so many other ways. So I felt it was beneficial to talk about it and release it. And so I spoke to somebody over the phone, because you don't have to always see somebody face to face. There's so many people that do it over Zoom, like we're doing it as well. It's I always felt that it helps me to talk about something to somebody and process it, and then work through it and acknowledge it and then move on, rather than holding within it and then sitting within it and then you're kind of not going forward. I think that's what I've learned through having therapy myself. So I've met a lot of counselors. I think it's important to have a counselor that was obviously registered, BSc registered, that is in the UK, that has, if you want to look for somebody that has had childless experience. If not, that's up to you. But to have that rapport with somebody is important. If you don't feel that you have a rapport with the counselor, it's okay to say, actually, I don't wanna, I don't feel there's a vibe between us. So it's important to have a counselor that you feel that you are in tune with, that you can talk to. And sometimes it's just so nice to have a counselor validate you as well, to say, look, you're amazing, you're this, you're that. Sometimes you don't even validate yourself, how much you've done. So I think that also makes a difference. So I feel personally, for me, I think it's such a important thing. I know in the previous years, people didn't feel it was maybe good to talk about your problems and issues, but I think now we're learning that slowly mental health is a key to your fitness and your health and your overall well-being.
Yeah.
And now it's not so much of a stigma, hopefully, that people can now talk about things. And it's obviously private, it's confidential. So, and it's also, you can say what you really want to say without being judged. I think that is such a valid point. So, if you feel ready to do having counseling, you could do it like a couple, or you could do it yourself, then feel free to go through that route, because there's something, it might be difficult to say it, but after you've done it, they're there for you. They can obviously guide you through that difficult emotion that you're having. Obviously, it's understandable, and put you through that time to obviously recover from that session as well is important. So yeah, I feel it's the best thing I ever did, and I think counselling is so positive that I would
Yeah.
hope want to be able to do it myself at some point. That is my goal at some point, to become a counsellor myself. Yeah.
I think, like you said, finding the right person is crucial, because I've done it twice before. One time was in France, in French, because I lived in France for a while, and that was terrible. And then another time was when I was doing embryo freezing, and the woman was, I found her on BetterHelp, but she lived in Seattle in New York, Seattle in the US, and I looked her up online after I'd worked there for 2 or 3 sessions, and I don't think she'd done a training since like the 1990s, and I was like, that's 35 years ago. What on earth is going on? And then I ended up cancelling with her because she just had she had views that just did not align with what I was talking about. Because I was doing embryo freezing and I was talking about getting the embryos tested so that we'd have genetically okay embryos to implant if we chose to. And she was just sort of saying to me, like, oh, but I personally would love any child. They're a gift, and all, and all this sort of thing. And I was just like, well, of course, any child is a gift, but also if I could reduce my chances of a miscarriage or a termination for medical reasons, like having, with my experience, of course, any child is a gift, but also I kind of want to protect myself and my child. I don't know. So it was just like I
Mm.
ended up like stopping with her because it was just so awful. But now I found somebody really good who like she's brilliant, and I don't ever want to stop talking to her. But like I
That's what
think
it is. Yeah.
finding someone who like actually gets you and you can speak openly and honestly and like vulnerably, I think is so important. So for the past couple of years, I said, "Oh, therapy's not for me." I think even last year during my healing after infant loss videos, I said, "Well, journaling's not for me and therapy's not for me, but yoga and meditation is." And now I'm like, "Well, actually, therapy is when you find the right when you find the right therapist, and journaling is when you have a therapist who gives me really good journal prompts. So I like." Rather than just like how are you feeling today, it's like deep shit. So I'm now finding journaling is also for me. So it's interesting how like my perspective is changing, but I think finding the right person is crucial.
No, definitely. You definitely, it's okay to turn around and say to the counselor after one session, I don't feel we're
Yeah.
getting on. Because they should be able to say that anyway, that it's up to you to decide to go ahead. It's not point
Mm,
talking to somebody if you really don't like them and you feel judged and they're saying something that you don't agree with. Obviously, that's
yeah.
for them to challenge you at some points, but I think you've got to have a rapport with that person,
Yeah. Yeah.
and find there's that relatability, especially when you are talking about something so difficult and traumatic as having, childlessness in your life. I think it's important to have somebody who's going to be empathic and caring and understanding. So definitely, but therapy is anything like you said, journaling, walking in nature, yoga is a form of, whatever that helps you to heal is what therapy is. But counseling is different in the sense that it's somebody experienced and has knowledge in the field that can help you, whether it's, psychodynamic, whether it's a person centered, or CBT. They can work you through the different therapies to help you maybe get out of different thought processes that you're kind of maybe stuck in. So in a
Mm,
way they can, it's about self-help as well. So obviously you feel that you don't want to do it, that's fine. But sometimes it's, you might want to have one and see how it works before you
yeah.
make a judgment. Just say, oh, it's not for me. It might not be, that's fine. But give it, I know it's not cheap. They are expensive to do. If you
Mm,
have to pay for it yourself, you can always try to get a referral for your GP. That takes ages to get therapists. So I've had to self-fund them myself. But I feel for me it's a
yeah.
valuable, what it's given me tools, as I said, to help me when I have had difficulties, or what can I do now to manage this. Then I've had that experience, so I felt it was important for me to process it with somebody who was trained to talk about what I was going through.
It's interesting as well. You said earlier about they repeat back to you what you've said. And the interesting thing is, I'm doing couples therapy with my husband. We're not in trouble, we're fine, but it's just to like talk about things. And it's interesting because he will say something, and obviously I'm listening and I hear what he's saying, and then she'll say, "It sounds to me like you're saying X," and she'll reword it, and I go, "What is that? What you just said?" Because I hear what he's saying, whereas she like interprets what he means, if that makes sense.
No.
So in terms of then like communication, it's really interesting because like I hear what Jeremy's saying, but then she'll say it in a different way that makes me understand it completely differently. And then same with me, like I'll say something and she'll say, "Oh, I think you're thinking this thing," or yeah, having someone repeat it back to you. And sometimes I'll say something and she'll repeat back the exact words I've just said, and I'm like, "Oh God, I just said that." And like, yeah, it's really interesting having someone who's like trained to know what to pick up on and how to interact with you. It's so interesting. I love it now, which I
Yeah,
never thought I would.
well, that's what they experience. That's what they know what they do,
Yeah,
and that's. I think that's also to do with maybe, men and women's communication. Sometimes there is that sense of, we can hear something that we don't particularly
yeah,
hear properly, and the vice versa. They hear something we would think, no, actually, that's not what we meant. I think there is that,
yeah,
that the brain kind of picking up information and not listening. They listen acutely, they can hear, and also it's good to sometimes they can summarize and you can actually, that's not what
yeah,
I meant. So there is that degree of them summarizing and you saying, actually, that is not what I was trying to say.
yeah, yeah,
So there is that as well in it. But it's like you said, there's somebody professional there, and it's also, so good that you could do it with your partner, and they can understand you better and you understand
Yeah.
them better. So it helps to rebuild your relationship as well. And then you
Yeah.
improve upon that within your own side. I think Michelle Obama spoke about her having therapy with her husband. So it's not, it's one of those things that a lot of people are doing it. It's not something to be frowned upon. It's not like you say you've got marriage problems. I think a lot of people have therapy in their marriage, and it helps just become better at being partners and
Yeah.
strengthen your marriage. What's wrong with having guidance from others that can help you, because you don't know what to do otherwise. How are you supposed to navigate all of this? We were talking about
Yeah.
that before. There is no understanding. Everybody's experience is so individual with their partner and what they've had to overcome. And like we said, partners can totally experience it differently with grief and how they manage it. And it's good to be able to talk about it. And then you actually say, oh, actually, my husband, partner is grieving. Oh, actually, they are going through it just as bad as me. Maybe I didn't
Mm.
realize, and their process. And it comes to relate to, you can actually grow together and understand that you are sharing the same issue, not just because you're not experiencing it in the same way. So it's
Yeah.
about strengthening your relationship, because this can have so much impact upon your relationship as well. I think people don't understand that. It can hopefully, not damage it, but it can create problems between, you and your partner relating to each other, especially with such a difficult emotion as grief, because we were talking about it before, it's so complicated.
Yeah.
Um, and there's never an end to it. It's always there in your life, especially when you're
Yeah.
growing together. And I think that's important to keep, processing it together and keeping that connection together, especially as a couple. Is so important that you relate to each other as well when you're going through that, because it's both of your children. It's not just one or the other. Um, so I think that's what I felt was so valuable over it. So hopefully it will help you as well,
Yeah.
both of you and your partner.
She said to me today, she said, oh, I can, because it was only like a 45-minute session and I told my side of the story. And like, she said to me, I can tell you're both grieving very differently and processing it very differently. And I was like, yeah, but also we experienced the same thing in parallel, but we had completely different experiences, because yes, I was the one that's pregnant and I had the physical things, but he also had to watch me going through that, which I think is like another thing in itself. And he had to do things like arrange the funeral and sign the paperwork for the death certificate and the birth certificate. And like, I was just not in the right, like, I had no idea where I was and what was going on. So like, we experience the same thing, but in entirely different experiences. And then also our grief is entirely different in our processing and all these different things. So it's really interesting to do therapy together, because like, we can talk about the same thing but from a different perspective, and understand each other's side of it. And yeah, I think it's brilliant. So thank you for sharing your your thoughts as well about therapy. I think uh, in my eyes, I think personal therapy is more normalized these days. I do still think that couple therapy is still a bit like, oh, are you on the rocks, or oh, are you getting a divorce? It's, I think that's still a little bit taboo. I don't know if that's just me. Do you find that as well? Or is
Possibly, I
that just
think,
me?
yeah, it possibly is a taboo, but I always found therapy, as I said, invaluable, especially when
Yeah.
we both had cancer. I thought, how are we not going to have therapy? Because we were totally, we were young at that point. We just got through something terrible. I fully felt that it was beneficial to do. I never saw it as
Mm.
a taboo. I was thinking, how are we supposed to manage our life now, especially within such an integral part of our relationship? For me, it's always something valuable to use. I never feel that is a taboo, even coming from an Indian background. I think the more you, personally for me, the more you talk about something, the better it is. And like
Yeah.
you said, sometimes you can interpret somebody and think, why are they not feeling this way? Why they're not doing that? You can sometimes take it
Yeah.
as they're not grieving when they are. I think that's the difference that we spoke about. Um, so there is a taboo, but I think, like fortunately, but the more people are talking about having counselling, as I've said, on social media, that it's okay to talk about that. How else are you going to stay together if you don't have counselling? Sometimes it's to work through that. You can be going through difficulties, but then it will help you to go through that rather than just, oh, let's divorce. Um, Hopefully then it can strengthen and you can possibly stay together, or it might be the case that you might not wish to. But it's always good to do something like that to try to see if you can get through the period of time. We will have difficulties. We're humans. Even navigating that with somebody else is even twice as hard when you're in the
Yeah.
same house all the time as well, you know, and especially with having such a tragedy. Sorry to hear as well what's happened to you. It's such a
Mm.
difficult process, and there's always an elephant in the room between yourself and your partner, like we spoke about. That is always there. That child, you know, the child that you want is still there. It doesn't matter how many years it goes by. It's something that you
Mm.
built together to want to have. So I think it's important to, I feel, to tackle it and say, look, let's sit down and let's have a discussion about every. If you bury it, it comes back anyway. And then it can create misconceptions like we spoke about. You could say, oh, my husband's not grieving in the way that why is he doing this, why is he doing that, why is he crying, you know. If that, I think that also alleviates, like you spoke about in the session, you can actually think, oh, hang on a minute, they are grieving, I just didn't think of it as being the same thing. And it could grow, hopefully bring you together. And that's why it is a taboo, but I hope that the more people can talk about it and say they found it important, the less it will be, and hopefully it can be done from, you know, young people are now having counselling as well, and the
Yeah.
more that you do it, the better it is, because it's something that otherwise it affects your mental health in such
Yeah.
detrimental ways when you get older. For example, as depression, and you can also get effects in your physical form as well, unfortunately, if you don't process, you know,
Mm.
things like grief and anger, and it can fester in your body. So it's important. It's all his holistic part of your healing anyway. So
Yeah. So thank you for talking about the therapy. I'd also like to talk about journaling. So I remember during the last episode, you were talking about writing and how much that helped you. Did you start writing to process your cancer diagnosis, or was it just after the infant loss and the mastectomy and that kind of side of things?
for me, it really began after I had the IVF afterwards. That's, I've always been writing anyway. I found writing something which I love doing. It's a hobby for me. It's something where I find that I can express my emotions and put it into words, and then that helps me to release whatever I'm feeling at that time. With the child loss, I just felt it was such a therapeutic tool, sorry, to put what I was feeling on paper and process whatever the emotions that were going through, like, you know, anger, bitterness, injustice, whatever the emotions are, to say, okay, you know, what was it that I was feeling at that time? What did it mean? Like we were talking about, you know, it being unfair, and that is the truth. You know, it's okay to say, this is how I feel. I feel like this is crap. I feel this is unfair. I didn't want this to happen. It's those, all those feelings are valid. And it's also a way of me to share how I was feeling at that point. And also then I was able to share it to others, and I think others came up to me and said, oh, I didn't realize how difficult it was not to have a child, or what you are going through. I think it opens other people's minds. Sometimes you can say to somebody, this is what's happened to me, but they might not understand, like we just spoke about, you know, they're not going to know because they're not experienced it. But if you speak about it in some other ways, they can kind of understand it through emotions such as anger, you know, bitterness, whatever it is that are going through, they can kind of understand that.
Mm.
um so for me, it's a real therapeutic, so I can't even say the word. Therapy too is another healing way for me to go through this, because I can express what I feel, and then hopefully somebody else can read it and think, oh yeah, I get what she means. There's so much out there. Sometimes there isn't enough. You know, World Childless Week does it, which I'm so grateful for. They're doing it during September, where they've allowed other women to write and submit their work on so many different themes. And that is, again, is a beneficial tool to have people to be able to share their story, because we were just talking about that. So many people come through this in so many different ways, and they can share how they really feel about it
Mm.
without it again being judged by others, and somebody say, oh, actually you shouldn't be feeling like this, why you know, why don't you just go and adopt and foster, what you're crying at, that kind of thing we already spoke about. It's not helpful. It's something you could read somebody's story and think, oh, actually they understand how I feel, and something to relate to. Because I was
Yeah.
speaking to that to you before, it can be alienated during this time, and it's so validating to see somebody else share their written work. And I'm also wanting to do that for the same reason, to say, look, this is something that we should be not talking about, and the more people talk about it, the better it is. So whatever method that you can do that in, painting, whether it's dancing in a way that expresses your emotion, it doesn't matter. It's the way to get it out of your system and to heal, and that's what we're looking to do, is heal from this difficult journey in some form of capacity.
And with your writing, did you start, because I know you write poems at the moment, did you start with journaling and just writing about how you feel, and then that progressed into poetry? Do you think you would ever write a book? And I don't know, talk to me about that side of things.
Sure. I started off writing short stories, to be honest. That's how I
Ah,
started
okay.
writing. In being a teenager, I got into it because of my English teacher was actually amazing at the time. He
Mhm.
encouraged me to read, and I've always written for some reason. I don't know where it comes from. So writing short stories is predominantly what I was writing for a lot of years.
Mm.
And then it was something that I've just kept on doing because I enjoy it. Just writing for myself, not particularly to get published, just to have my own way of sharing what I was going through. And then I met other people along the way who are also writers, and then I suddenly got into poetry. It's not something that I feel that I'm knowledgeable about or have any insightfuls. I just ended up writing in that form. I was thinking, why am I suddenly writing like this? It doesn't make any sense. But I went with it. I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. That's fine. So I was kind of going with the flow of this is where I'm going through in my own experience of being a writer. So then I challenged it, and then I kind of went to other groups to learn how to better writers in that form. But I go to lots of writing groups. That's what I do. I don't write predominantly on my own, but it's sharing it with other people online. So I've done that as well. So, and also it's nice to meet other people who are writers as well, to share that experiences. Writing a book is something I've always thought about, maybe at some point to do in the long term.
Mm.
But it can be journaling. I have written a diary, so I know some people diarize when is this day I did this and that. Sometimes it's okay to do that and lock it away, put it away and not have to share it with somebody. A lot of people are doing their memoirs, and now again, a lot of people are writing, celebrities are writing their books about their experiences. So it's up to people if they want to share it. So again, it's a snippet sometimes of what somebody's life is and how difficult it is, because sometimes you can see on Instagram a picture of somebody, you don't realize how hard their life has been. And I wouldn't have
Yeah.
known what you've been through unless I had seen it and heard it. So it's the same. We all don't know. We're all human. We don't know what somebody's had to go through unless we read it or we hear about it. So I think I wanted to share it to other people, and hopefully they can resonate with what I'm saying, and vice versa. I can read other people's work and also think, oh, I can actually relate to that. So
Mm.
it's such a great tool.
I think being able to relate to people, especially with something like infant loss, is so important. It's so powerful because for so many years I felt so alone because I hadn't really looked at it on Instagram, but I also think maybe 10 years ago people weren't talking about it on Instagram.
Mm.
Whereas these days, there's so many people with social media accounts talking about infant loss. It's amazing. There's so many of us on there. And I think, finding these people, whether it is through Instagram or YouTube or writing or dance or like all these different ways that you can connect with people, just knowing that somebody's been through something similar, whether it's the same or not, it's probably never going to be exactly the same, but like something similar, it makes you just feel like less alone. And yeah, and just that somebody might understand your pain a little bit.
I think before maybe it was a taboo, like people just kind of buried
Yeah.
it, told to get on with it, especially maybe, before they were kind of like, that's what women have to do. We have to sort of get on with it. Why are we crying about something like this? It's just one of those things that's happened. Now it's like you say, now less and less it's understandable to be able to recognize your feelings and to
Mm.
process it and talk about it and express it, and be allowed to be able to give the permission to share your story, especially with the forms of media. Like, as I said, when I was younger, there was nothing like, internet, let alone, emails and things like that, and
Yeah.
phones. And so it's so much out there on social media, and people have been brave enough to put their story out there. And then it gives you permission. You feel, oh, okay, now I can do it because somebody else has done it. So it hopefully helps other people to be able to do it, rather than feeling, oh no, I can't say that, I can't do this, because then you see somebody else doing it, So you've obviously allowed other people to share their stories, and other people will therefore allow other people to share their stories. So it's such a positive thing to do, and the more people, like you said, talk about it, the less afraid. And people maybe never shared their stories about miscarriages and child loss before, but now it's such a, hopefully it's a less of a stigma for people to share about it and not feel that they have to just bury that difficulty that they might have had in their own life as well.
Yeah. My next question was, how does writing help you process grief? I know you've spoken a little bit about this, about just writing down about the emotions, the anger and things. Is there anything else you want to kind of expand on with that in terms of grief after infant loss?
I think it's just processing that emotion and releasing it is important, because sometimes we spoke about, anger can fester within it. Sometimes you can sort of keep it within your body, and then you get affected by, maybe you're sleeping, you're not eating, you're eating too much, whatever these emotions are can sit within the body. And I spoke about that before. It's such a holistic part of, I feel, important to heal as a human. We are humans, we're not machines. Can't just something can't, we can't just be like, oh yeah, we just had this happen, now let's just, I think, as I said before, it was the kind of the olden days of just get on with it. I think we sometimes do that anyway within ourselves still now. Oh, let's just get over this. But we are human. We need, that it's important to validate whatever you're feeling. And for me, writing has always been that tool to kind of express what it is I'm expressing. Even if it's joy, it's okay to express joy. It's okay to express, good things are happening. It's not just a tool about sadness, but it's okay to have both emotions in there. And now, you see so many other, as I said, people doing writing. It's such an effective tool. I think it's just about channeling whatever you're feeling at that time. Like we talk about diaries, so diaries have always been there, with just saying, this is how my day went. Sometimes you might have not had anybody to talk to during what your experience during that day that you've happened. So that's another form of therapy, to just express it to yourself. You don't have to share it to others. It doesn't have to be out on social media. That's only if you feel comfortable. But it's okay to write it in a book, just for yourself. And then you can,
Yeah.
years later, you can look at it and say, oh, wow, this is how I felt at the time. Look how far I've come. This is how much I've done. I'm not the same person. It's a good way of looking at your own life as well.
I
As
love
well to keep.
I love that you said about, you can write down the joy and the happy things, because I think I've had a journaling app on my phone for a couple of years now, and if I have a really bad day where something really pisses me off, I'll open it and be like, rah, this thing happened, oh my god, I'm so annoyed, and then I don't touch it for about another month or two until the next time I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. So it's interesting that, like, you can also write about the good things. I think journaling is, in my eyes, I don't know if it's completely wrong, but in my eyes it's more of like a release of negative, whereas I think also writing the positive and having that balance is probably quite important, and being able to recognize the good and the bad, and the happy and the sad, and the joy and the sadness and whatever else. Like, it's important in life in general to recognize both. So I think journaling both also makes both of them more real, if that makes sense. Or I don't know, like, processing both emotions makes it. Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
That's okay. You know what? Trust me, I did all the negative stuff as
Yeah.
well. But I think it's important to get it out as well, because that is what you're feeling. It's okay to
Yeah.
be. I don't like the word negative and positive. I think, because I would say it's negative, but those emotions as well are valid. Anger is valid. Jealousy is valid. Bitter,
Mm.
that is a valid, as well as joy, as well as beauty, as well. They're all just intrinsic emotions. There's not one that you can't have one without the other as well.
Mm.
We're all going to go through bad times and good times, so we're not going to all feel happy all the time. That's not possible. So it's all right to get that out, because if you allow the negativity to fester within, that is also not good, as I said, for the body. So it's okay to
Yeah.
release it. It's always about negative. It's just about how you're feeling during that period of time. Because we all can't be like, yeah, we're okay. Yeah, I lost my child, but yeah, let's go and dance. It's not that. That's not realistic. You have to be honest
Yeah.
with what that means and what that meant at that time.
Mm.
And it's okay to express, if you are having a nice day, the sun shines out, the bees, the simple things in life. So it's a matter of both, I
Yeah.
feel personally.
Um, the next question I had written down was, how can people get started? I know that you sometimes do workshops and courses with Fertility UK. You also mentioned the World Childless Week, but if people wanted to either get started on their own or join one of these things, what advice do you have for people wanting to kind of tap into writing as a form of processing infant loss, grief, and trauma and things?
Obviously, feel ready to be able to do it, because obviously you have to be, ready to talk about the feelings that you're ready. If you feel like you're not able to do that, don't push yourself, don't force yourself.
Mm.
Because obviously that's a difficult thing. You felt ready to go to counselling when you were ready to do that. It's not
Yeah.
fair to say, right, let's go and do this. If you're not prepared to go through that, it's okay to say, you know what, I'm not ready to do that at the moment. That's perfectly valid.
It took
Writing
me
is
8 years also. It took me 8 years to find a good therapist and to actually stick with
exactly.
it. So it's not always straight away that, you feel ready to talk about these emotions because they are big emotions. So,
Yeah, writing you could just do anytime you want to anyway. Writing is just, having, people do writing on their computer, they could do it on their
hmm
phone. So I personally still prefer pen and paper. That's
hmm
just me. But it's just being able to write about whatever it is you're writing about. So let's say if you want to write about what you had for dinner today, what you did for shopping, that it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be anything particular. It's just about expressing whatever. Let's say you had a particular day and you just want to be able to write about that, so it doesn't have to be a particular theme. It's just to
mm
have a go. You can also decide to join a writing group. Sometimes there's writing groups in your area. You can join the writing group in your local libraries are great at doing writing
mm
groups. There's also writing groups online, as well, that you can join, um, also, within a group, and that can give you tools to how to get into it. So start off, within writing about what I've usually had is writing, again, just writing for the sake of it. Don't worry about your grammar, your punctuation, your full stops, because that can also feel like, oh no, it doesn't sound
Yeah.
like it's supposed to sound like this, it's supposed to sound like that. It's okay just to write for the sake of it. Sometimes it's all right just to write whatever you're feeling for 10 minutes, and then you can also edit in and rewrite it afterwards. I think, we're quite a perfectionist sometimes with, oh, it has to be, it has to rhyme, it has to be like Shakespeare. I mean, that's not always going to be possible. And also you could write a journal. We talked about that before. Yeah, if you want to join groups, and also, as I said, well, Childless, we do have specific areas that you can write about. And I think if you put it on the website afterwards, I think they've already closed their one for this year. But you can also
Okay.
write for next year's one as well. So there's particular issues on, moving forwards. What does that mean for you? Having a dog or cat. They write about whatever things that you're going through, and how does that help you heal. And that could be something. And you don't have to write. You could just do a picture. You can do whatever form of expression.
Mm.
That is another thing that you can do. So it's whatever you feel like it. It's whatever way you want to express yourself. That is what it is. It can often be like, well, I don't have the tools to write, but writing is just something. I think everybody is a writer, because we might have a journal that is a writer. It doesn't. You don't
Mm.
have to be professional in it. I'm not particularly, I wouldn't call myself a professional writer in any capacity. I just do it as a hobby. I do it because I love it, because I enjoy it. And I think whatever you love and enjoy, that is what is important.
Mm.
Um, and like we were talking about identity, that is my part of my identity that I felt like I wanted to keep up doing, because it was so important to me, and it was giving me the healing and also the way to kind of move forward slowly. So if I hadn't had that, I wouldn't have known what to do. I would have been like, how do I get through this? How do I understand what it is that I'm going through? What is this emotion? So it was kind of giving me a way to move forward. I think we were just talking
Mm.
about that. How do you get over these things? Not that you can get over these things anyway, but how can you move forward in doing something that is part of you, that is not to do with having a child, in regaining your own sense of identity with what you enjoy doing. Jessica Edmond swims, and I believe she's trying to run as well. If I've got that wrong, I apologize. But it's doing, what you like doing, just finding some way to live your life. I think that's
Mm.
No, we just can't, everyone's not going to have a baby. We all can't just, unfortunately, it doesn't happen for us. But I think it's a way of understanding, what can I do now that I really love doing? And that's okay to, we spoke about Carrie sitting in a bath. It's okay to do that. It's all right to enjoy yourself. It's okay to find a way to still smile. So, we're not, we're not here to just be in sadness all the time, because that's not what it's all about.
Yeah. I think with journaling as well, when I first started, I thought there was like a right way and a wrong way to do it. And if I ever wrote something down, I'd be like, oh, it's not good enough, or it's not right, or I'm not doing it right. And it's nice what you're saying, because I'm kind of getting that, like, there is no right and wrong way. It is just whatever you write down is writing.
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's
think
what I felt.
I had so much pressure in my mind of like, oh, it needs to be good, or it needs to be right, or I don't even know what that is. But I remember, like, with the therapist, I was, I shared my first couple of like journal things with her, and she'd sort of reflect back and send me an email back and things. And yeah, I think I sort of said to her, like, I don't know if I'm doing this right, and she was like, your journaling is right. Like, don't worry about, like you said, don't worry about grammar and spelling. Just write whatever you're writing, and that's fine. Like, that's the practice, is just writing. It's not about then somebody reading it and analysing it and correcting it or marking it. It's not a test. It's just about getting it out of your head and your body, I guess, which, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes the best things come through the subconscious mind. I think I've
Mm,
learned that through doing lots of writing courses myself, through other people are facilitated. And then
mm,
people that are write, and you're like, oh my God, is this going to sound right? Is this going to feel right? Like you just said. But sometimes you can write something, just the fair fact that you've written something, and it will be something there that's come from some form of yourself. And I think that's why it's such a beautiful tool. So
mm,
I say to somebody, if you can be brave enough, give yourself at least 5 minutes, if you can, or 10 minutes, put a clock on and just write. It doesn't matter what it is. Just give
mm,
yourself the permission to write. You can write about, what you bought for food. You can write about the dog, the cat, whatever you did outside. It doesn't matter what you did at work. It doesn't have to be anything. It could be just anything of anything, and just see how you get on. And then just read through it and then see, oh, what did I actually put in there that I can use, maybe that I liked, and that I can have as a point of reference to maybe write about more. Or
mm,
just write it out for the sake of it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be out there. Nobody has to see it social media. If you want to share it, that's up to you. But it's just about getting it out there. Like you said, we're too worried, we criticize. There is also that self-criticism in everybody's minds. Oh, this is not good enough. I don't know my semicolons or my colons, all that stuff when you had at school, my paragraphing. We get taught that at school, it has to be looking at a certain way. But with this, it doesn't matter. It could just be, writing on a laptop, whatever way you feel, or phone. If you really want to dictate it, that's up to you. You can
mm,
dictate it, say it, as well. So it doesn't have to be written if you really feel like, your writing doesn't make any sense. And some people prefer to write it and then maybe type it. It's up to you, individuals, how they feel to express themselves. And rap is another form of expression, so
mm.
it doesn't have to be, this. That's what I said. This or that. It can be whatever way you want to express it, in a way that is suitable to you, your personality. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I would suggest something like that, maybe just to get yourself started. Or journaling. Again, journaling, that doesn't matter, because you're going to possibly put it away anyway and not look at it. So that's your own private thoughts, and nobody else can say to you that isn't correct. And there's nobody that can say to you that it's not correct or not, unless you obviously get published and you might have to have it edited. That's different, and that has to go through that. But work can be edited afterwards. You can sit there and reflect, and then go through it with a fine tooth comb and think, okay, what can be changed, what can be edited. I mean, I'm sure lots of writers possibly do that anyway, who are published. They don't
Yeah.
sit there trying to get everything right within everything, just kind of go through it. Otherwise, you're never going to do it. You're just going to be sitting there overly worrying about every sentence,
Yeah.
every word.
It's more important just to get it out versus getting it kind of perfect.
Yeah, I just feel that's, yeah, have a go, see how you get on, see how you feel it works for you or not.
That's some great advice. If we talk also, you sort of mentioned about dance and painting and things like this. I wondered if we could now talk about crafts, and could you sort of mention any crafts that come to mind that might help with processing grief and trauma and things after infant loss?
Yeah, sure. I did crafting when I had cancer. It just was a
Mm.
way of just getting me out and about in terms of, because I was feeling ill, I was feeling tired, but something that I could slowly, little bit pieces to do. So I used to do card making. I had no clue how to do card making, to be
Mm.
honest. But I just wanted to just give myself something to focus on because, I felt so tired and I felt like I really couldn't do anything. So just something to
Mm.
make, something to create. And I just got piece of paper, whatever you want to do, and whether you only want to buy yourself extra pieces or not. But just started to do that, and I didn't have any experience about it. But just something, creating something is nice to do for it in itself, whatever that may be. And you can give it to somebody as a birthday card. You can give it to somebody, as a card for whatever reason. That's how I started doing it. And I
Mm.
thought, oh my God, I really enjoy this. I don't know why. But it's like, being that inner child, of yourself,
Yeah.
creating, making, sticky glue, whatever you want to call it, things like that, glitter, just being silly and just having fun, because that's what we were talking about. It's just, allowing yourself to have that fun, allowing yourself to just enjoy whatever you're doing and making. And then after that, I just kind of got into it slowly, just by trying to get myself craft kits. And, I know they can be expensive, just to be mindful of that.
Mm.
Um, and just trying bits and pieces of what I liked and what I didn't. And then I just decided to make people Christmas cards, which was, I used diamond painting, which are little, they're not real diamonds, but they're called diamonds. They're like sequins, and you can stick them on whatever picture you're making. So whether they're, a snowman, for example, and you use
Mm.
specific colors on specific parts of it. So, J can be white, H can be red, and you're kind of like, it's a bit like,
Like the
coloring.
colouring books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly like that. And it's a great mindfulness too, as well. I find it helps me
Mm.
to relax. I sit there and I can just forget about anything, rather than worrying about, the dishes or the ironing. We tend to have 50 billion things on our minds. You could just sit and think, like, where's that color and where's that fit into it? So yeah, coloring is that's another thing I did, coloring in, that I find that so therapeutic. And that is, again, just having fun, just using whatever color. It doesn't have to be inside the line again.
Yeah.
Just coloring, use felt tip pens, and just have a bit of fun. I think it's just sitting there and just doing something for yourself, because sometimes we tend to do things for everybody else. Everybody else has to be happy, everybody else has to be catered for. But what about yourself? Just, it's okay to sit and do something that you like doing, and that can
Yeah.
be in whatever form of expression. So yeah, I joined a local class. Luckily, I found somebody who does lessons on crafting, and I tried to go to them. So she does like embroidery. I've tried, jewelry making. So
Mm.
it's great. I've just learned different things I never would have done if I hadn't have tried it. I thought, you know what, if the one that I made for jewelry making, actually I terribly failed at it, and it turned out wrong. But it doesn't matter. I thought, you know what, I've tried it. It's not. I didn't really enjoy it, but I had to go. What difference does it make? You try to do something and you think you can end up liking it, and you can end up not liking it. It's something that it's just all right to have a go at something, and you meet other people, and crafting has become, a business by lots of people, because I recognize everybody, a lot of people are doing it now. And if it gives you
Mm.
joy, why not? You don't want to be, we're not here sitting there feeling sorry for ourselves. We don't want to do that. We don't want to see people to feel pity for us. That's not what it's about. It's about enjoying your life again, and
Mm.
finding a way to get back to happiness and joy, and whether that's, crafting or not, that's up to you to, to have a go at it and see how you feel about it. If you don't enjoy the craft, try something else. If you enjoy it, then why not sit there? And it helps you not to overly think in your mind about whatever it is that you're thinking about as well sometimes.
Yeah. So you've mentioned card making, diamond painting, colouring, um,
Embroidery is another one.
embroidery.
Yeah,
Pottery is one.
yeah, pottery's
Painting,
another one. Painting. There's
jewelry
woodcraft.
making.
Yeah, there's wood crafting. There's
Oh, wood,
origami.
yeah.
There's
Oh,
a painting by numbers you can do as well, so you can kind of pretend to be an artist. Some of the ones I've done downstairs, people are like, "Did you paint that?" I was like, "No." I just follow the numbers, but it's whatever you like doing. I've tried so many different ones, so there is a lots of ones that you can subscribe to. But as I said, that that they are, but they give you the pack. But if obviously you can't afford that, then you can join a local class if you're able to, or get yourself some cards and coloring pencils and have a go at doing whatever it is that you like doing. So it's about expressing yourself. Sometimes I did do one workshop with a lady after I lost the children, and she um, did one that was about healing, and it was quite a good class. And it was just drawing a picture of how you felt and using the colors. Sometimes colors are another form of expression. Green,
yeah,
red, whatever you're feeling. Just that's another way of saying how you feel. So it doesn't have to be a perfect picture. It doesn't have to be something that's going to be a museum. It's about doing whatever you want to do, and it doesn't matter if nobody else likes your work. I don't care. I'm like, I'll
yeah,
put it up on the shelf. I've got a little crafting shelf I did Lego as well. I had to go at that, and I found that so enjoyable to do
yeah,
as well. But it's like that inner child, just having a bit of fun as well. It's so nice to be able to do. And something you can share as well together. You could do that with your partner. Let's make something out of Lego together. Just have a bit of fun.
mm.
So yeah, something to do together.
So if people want to try crafting for themselves, so you've mentioned kind of groups and online. I guess there's online courses and local courses and
Yes.
packs and things. I think also probably YouTube videos. You probably watch YouTube videos and learn how to do origami or
Oh gosh, yeah.
painting and all these different things.
YouTube is amazing. Obviously I found
Yeah.
you. You're on YouTube. There's so many things. You can pause it. You can watch it. If you can't, join a class, that's of can meet other people as well. Then you can have a go physically.
Yeah.
But it's okay to if you can't, because they're quite expensive. Sometimes you can find free ones as well. As I said, the local libraries do them, which is amazing, and you don't have to pay a lot of money. So it's if you can find something, have a look. An Eventbrite is great. I found a lots of different things on there.
Mm.
We can search. That's in the UK, I think, as well. I'm not sure if they're based in America as well. And there's also a group called Meetup as well that I joined. It's another group that you can join for free, where you can look at things in the local area that you like doing.
Mhm.
So it's about getting out and about, and just not. And again, nobody tends to talk about having a child. That's what I found so refreshing out of
Mm.
going to these things. Everybody's just so concentrating what they're making and doing, and I've not got touchwood asked once, because everybody's so geared up. Usually, majority of the time it's women that go to these things, but it's a different range of women, and I found that I can feel like I can kind of belong in a way,
Mm.
doing this thing that we're all creating. Creating doesn't have to be having a child, it's creation through other means. And that also made me feel like I was channeling creating something and making it, and leaving that legacy of doing something, which is not, again, just giving birth. It doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah. That's so wonderful. It's so good. Like, because I've been traveling for the past 3 years and I've not had chance to have like. I keep saying to my husband, whenever we settle down, I want a spare room where I can do like. I want to make a candle one day. I want to make some jewelry the next day. I want to paint the next day. I want to do this and that and just do all the different things because I think there's something about making something with your hands, especially because I work a lot online with things like videos and editing and all that kind of thing. It's so nice to do something with your hands and take your mind off things. I think especially if you're going through infant loss and grief and all these kind of things, it's nice to, like you said, get out of the house, meet new people, but also have some sort of purpose for your day or have, something you've achieved or just take your mind off the shit that you're going through and just focus on something fun and light because, infertility and infant loss can feel so heavy and it can be nice to do. I mean, the diamond painting sounds fabulous. I think I might need to try that because
I've already
it just
tried to
sounds
make a
so,
Christmas card, so that's scary. I've started
yeah,
to make them already, because it takes time. But you just sit there, and it's so. And when you see what is made, I think this looks really nice, and everybody else gets one, and it's nice to give something like that to somebody.
yeah.
I just find it, like you said, it's so therapeutic, but it's so much fun as well to do. And I think my husband's probably got fed up on my craft shelf, which I had to get rid of. So many things on there, that I bought over the years. But I just think, what, I just like doing my fun side, because I'm still, I'm still full of fun and joy, and I don't want to forget that part of me. I felt like that part of me had kind of died and been crushed by the loss of having a child. I think it's okay to feel happy and to say, I'm still a child within myself. Let's get the child out within me, express whatever I'm expressing, and it's okay to feel happy, and it's okay to enjoy what I'm doing, and have a day, like you say, you've had a day, you can do it for a couple of hours. It doesn't matter if you don't create and it takes you a couple of weeks or months to create it. It's not about showing it to somebody else. It's just about, oh look, I've done this and it's taken me a couple of weeks. It's okay. There's also Facebook groups as well that do it. You can share your crafts with other people. People have put them online. You can post it, and it's nice to see what other people have made, and it gives you, oh, that's really nice. People do knitting. I mean, I've never been able to knit, so I think that's amazing. I've never tried it. So all of these are coming back in fashion, knitting, crochet. I think that's great. It's nice to it gives you that chance to sit down and just enjoy yourself. So yeah, have a go. Have a go whatever you like, and if you don't like it, you don't have to do it again. It's fine, but obviously be mindful if it's costing you a lot of money, because it all adds up. So
I think the other thing as well that's coming to mind is that when people have children, they then spend like a Saturday afternoon making a card for grandma's birthday, or they do like hand painting things when they're toddlers and turn it into a tree, or I don't know, like all these fun little things. And I think for people who like us who go through infant loss and then don't have children, I think without doing these crafting things, you kind of miss out on the opportunity to be creative and to do these silly fun things. Because does that make sense? I don't know. It's nice to kind of give yourself permission, and I feel like a lot of people with children do that anyway, because it's like a, not that it's a thing that kids do, but it's something you can do with children. Whereas if you don't have children, I don't feel like I prioritize that, because I don't know. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say?
I know what you mean, because like you're quite, you do baking with the kid or
Yeah,
whatever. You do crafting with it. You're right. It's like this job between the mother and the child, or the father and the child. You're going to do
yeah.
whatever it is together. That makes sense. But I feel it's okay to do it for yourself. Why not? I
No,
never.
I agree, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I never see that. I know what you mean. You always think that I'm going to be doing it with the child, but then the
yeah.
child might not want to do it anyway. You never,
Mm,
I don't know, because I'm not going to be able to do it with my child. Um, so that's one of those things. But I think I've just always been doing it irrelevant of when I had a child. So I think
yeah,
slowly, as the years have gone by, I've been able to give myself permission that it's okay to do something for myself. It's not
yeah.
selfish. It's not self-centered. Why can't I just have 15, 20 minutes or half an hour to myself to do something? You don't have to obviously sit there hours. If you can, why not? It's okay to even read a book. You don't have to be doing the dishes and the ironing and the cooking and the going to work. If you can, obviously we are busy nowadays, but if you can spare half an hour or 15 minutes, that's something that you've done for yourself. Because even as a mother, I believe that they usually give a lot of their energy and time to the child, and rather than themselves.
Yeah.
So there is that time to gain for yourself.
I think that's the thing. It's about giving yourself the permission to take the time to do something fun and creative, and it doesn't have to have. I think also I've spoken about this with some like people recently. Like, it doesn't have to be profitable. It doesn't have to be what's the word I'm looking for? How everything these days is um productivity driven, and you have to sell it afterwards. And if you spend £50, you need to make £100. And like, no, it's okay to just do things for the relaxing, for the fun, for the creativity, for the whatever it is. It's okay to do that without thinking of it, turning into a business kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, those Facebook groups, I've had so many people share just something that they made because they wanted to make it. Why not? They've done it for themselves, or they made it a gift for somebody else. It's such a nice thing if you want to make a gift for, your mum or your dad or your sister, brother, or whoever family member. Why not just give them a card, and
Yeah.
do that special thing? I made my niece and their nephews cards, which wasn't easy for me to do, but I wanted to do that for them because I felt like, let's just do something special for them
Mm,
and have a go at doing something like that. And it's, like you said, we don't have children to do it with, but we can do it for somebody else if you feel like you can do it for that person. But
mm,
it's also doing it for yourself if you're able to do it, spend that time and not to feel overly guilty, spending at least half an hour to do something for yourself. And whether it's baking, I mean, I can't bake at all. But Mark's very good at baking bread, and he does things like gardening, so that's his hobby,
mm,
so he's good at that. I mean, I can't grow anything if that's not that's not something that I'm good at to
yeah,
do. But, whatever you like doing, it's okay to have that. And I think these things are coming up again, like we spoke about. Crafting is becoming a thing. Gardening is coming back. All of these things that people used to do way back, suddenly people have found that, especially in COVID, where they could spend time on themselves, and
yeah,
suddenly realize that actually I don't want to focus on my job. I want to do something that I like.
mm,
um yeah, otherwise we are here for a limited time. That is a reality, and why just waste it around rushing around and doing this and that, rather than doing something that you really enjoy, that you like doing, and that gives you joy. Because we want to, hopefully, we want to spend our life in a meaningful way. And if that gives you
yeah,
meaning, why not do it? It's something I encourage everyone to try to have a go at something. And if you really don't feel like it's right for you, then that's fine. At least you've had a go. That's the main thing.
yeah, yeah. I think that's great. I love this. Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts about therapy, writing, and crafting. It's been fabulous. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we sort of close off?
I just want to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts. As I said, I feel what you're doing is invaluable. It's just so important to people who feel like there is a life beyond just having a child, that we can still
Mm,
have fun, we can still have joy, we can still make something. And it doesn't matter what that making is. It doesn't have to be a baby. I'm the same as you. I would have liked to have made a car with my child, but I'm not going to be able to
yeah.
do that. But why not
Mm,
make a car for somebody? As I said, I'm going to be making Christmas cards for other people now. So probably, but I love doing it. Obviously you have to watch your budget, be careful of, not getting yourself, into that. You can go to the pound shop. That's amazing. Get things from there, which are cheap. You can go to the charity shops, buy yourself, things from there. It doesn't have to cost you loads of money, these things. And like you said, it doesn't have to be about making a profit necessarily,
mm,
but it's about just doing it for yourself, and having a bit of fun and having a bit of joy. And if it goes outside the lines, set with colouring, who cares? It doesn't matter,
yeah.
yeah, just sharing that. And obviously, once you finish, you can always give the colouring books and whatever, to charity if they're still, if they're still usable. You can give it to somebody else to have a go at.
Mm,
So yeah, just enjoy yourself, and give yourself permission to express whatever it is you're expressing at that time. And that is a healing. And it's, as I said, for me, it's a mindfulness tool that I don't overly think about, everything. And that's what I tend to do, is be a lot in my head, and then it helps me
yeah.
just to create for the creating sake of something, and see what I've been able to do within a couple of weeks or months or whatever. Don't feel like you need to be making it within a day. I mean, give yourself a realistic time scale,
Mm,
for whatever it is you're going at. And if you can do it with, somebody else, if you feel a bit worried, try to do it with your partner. Let's make this together. Let's create this, or whatever. You can do it as a bonding experience between yourselves. It's just to have a go. There's so many things that are out there to give you that joy, and heal, to heal yourself. And I think that's what's helping me to regain some of my sense of myself again as well.
yeah. When you're saying about doing it with your partner, it reminded me of that trend that people are drawing, drawing each other, and then they show the drawing that they've drawn. It's so funny. I think I would
God,
love to do that with my husband. I think it was such a funny, like, bonding experience. And just, I think, like, bringing joy back into your life and happiness and being silly together and creating just for the sake of creating. I think that's really important. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, I did a Lego thing, and then my husband had to sit them in and take it off and say, "Look, you've done it wrong." I was like, "Why are you correcting my stuff?" But it was
Yeah.
so funny. But it was nice because he got involved in it. It was like, "No, you've done this way," and he
Yeah.
was like, "I'm an expert." But it got us, got us to do it together. So
Yeah.
it's about just having that happiness together and having a bit of fun. What's wrong with that? Why
Mm.
not?
Well, thank you so, so much for recording a second episode with me. I'll leave the link to the first episode down below as well, and any of your writing workshops that you do. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. I love speaking to you again, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch.
Thank you so much again for the opportunity.
Thank you.